Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Today we're going to talk about math and only murders in the building. Murder, mystery, mayhem, and carefully calculated comedy gold. So, let's talk about it. So Only Murders in the Building is an awesome show. So far, at the time of recording, we're 3 seasons in, and I have been digging it. For the purposes of the video, I'm not gonna hold back, so you're free to assume their spoilers are hit, just to be safe. I'll try to avoid them as much as possible, but just keep it in mind. So, if you want to be safe. With that in mind, let's get into it. Like I said, I've been digging Only Murders in the Building. It's 3 seasons, 10 episodes each, and it's available on Hulu. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It is a very fascinating show because it's a crime drama mystery show, um, as well as a comedy, and there's a lot of theater elements thrown throughout. And here's the thing: there's a lot of math. There's always a lot of math, whether you see it or not, right? Whether you're conscious of it or not, the math is always there. And so throughout this video, I want to talk about different elements of the show, both within universe and outside of it, where math can be talked about, right? Math can be seen or demonstrated. And just to be clear, it is not an exhaustive list of topics, right? And I welcome you to talk about more things if you didn't find them in the video or the stuff that I'm going to say. If you want to talk about it from your perspective, please feel free to do so. So, with that in mind, it's a well crafted show. It's heavily calculated. And it's just like, it's a trio at the center of the show that just makes it work the way that it does. You have Selena Gomez, Steve Martin, and Martin Short. Now, Steve Martin and Martin Short have been working together for decades. I think even before I was born. And just if you didn't know, I'm not as young as I look. But with that in mind, they've been working together for a while, so that's not a shock. But what is a shock is Selena Gomez teaming up with them and just having this like insane chemistry. And then just like everyone on the show, they're an expert at their craft, and it shows. It shows brilliantly. So with that in mind, what I'll start with is comedy, and then I'll lead into other elements of the show and kind of go from there. And throughout it, I'll talk about my feelings on the show outside of what I said and adding to what I said. Okay, so when it comes to comedy, that's something that's inherently mathematical, and I don't think that many people think about that. So to start, right, you have the basic setup, or sorry, you have the basic structure of a joke: setup plus punchline equals joke. That's your equation. That's the structure, and you can play around with that structure, right? You can be subversive. You can do recurring jokes. You can have visual humor. You can have spoken humor. You can have so many different elements to humor. And throughout all of it, not only do you have that basic structure of a joke, but you have the timing used throughout, and it can vary, and that's important in how a joke lands. And what I find just like fascinating is just how carefully everything is constructed, because you have a limited time in an episode. An episode length varies from episode to episode, but no matter how you cut it, right? Each episode has a certain length, right? And that length, it has a bunch of material in it, and you have to decide where the jokes are going to be and where they land. Timing is key, and how many jokes are in an episode is key, because not everything is going to land. But I think they do a pretty good job there. But so just based on the comedy alone, it's important. And one of the things I do have an appreciation for, like more with time, is like physical humor. And I say that because like if done well, it's brilliant. If done poorly, not so much. And it's like, this looks lazy, this looks lame. Even if someone put a lot of work into it, it can come off looking bad. But I mention it because like I said, I've got a greater appreciation because like not only do you have that basic structure of a joke, hey, we're gonna do this setup, we're gonna have this punchline in the form of that physical comedy, but you have like how fast people are moving, what positions they'll have to be, what kind of action is going to be in it. Is it going to be something that's just like sudden? Is it something that's going to be repeated? Is it a mix of these things? And then you have everyone working with each other. If there's multiple people involved in a physical comedy, and you have the filming with that, and all of it's lining up to make the joke. And that's all math. And I know people don't necessarily think about it that way, but it's true. And I find that fascinating. And then if we extend past the comedy, if we're looking at how the show is structured, right? There's math in not only that comedy, but there's math in how it's filmed and what it's filmed on. And, just like the camera work, right? There's math in the angles, math in positions of the actors, math in the and position of the objects, in the scaling, and how people move and how they speak. Because not only is there math in the volume at which they speak, but there's math in how they deliver a line, right? There's math in the timing involved, math in the breathing, math in how fast they're talking, right? And how you alter that from scene to scene. You have people playing off of each other, and everything is well timed and well constructed. And I think that's fascinating. And then you have things like budget to consider, episode length, and like I said, there's 10 episodes in a season, so it's like, well, what can we do to get that across? What can we do to put this clue here and that clue there to have people follow along without giving it all away? So you have to be careful with the timing of those clues and where you place them in the show and where you place them in an episode and how you bring them back up, and all that again is math, and that's fascinating to me. And then within the universe, they use math how we use it in the real world, which is like every time and all over the place. But if we wanted to get specific, like some things that I've noticed while watching is that, one, our main characters end up getting together and creating a crime podcast. And not only is there math and how long their podcasts have to be, but there's math in their strategy for imploring that and like putting it out there. There's math in the crimes that they're solving and putting things together. Like it's like, oh well, we might notice that this person was in this building at this time, and maybe that didn't gel with what they said before, or maybe they couldn't have been in this other place where part of the crime happened. And they're keeping track, they're making like those boards where you're connecting the dots, and there's just math in that too. And there's math in just like getting around from point A to point B for the characters, math and keeping track of things, right? They use time all the time in the show, right? Let you keep track of things, and location and all that good stuff. And so, like a lot of the ways that we use math just in our everyday way are used in there. It's used to like record their podcasts and keep track of things and catch people when they need to catch people. All that good stuff. And like I said earlier, there's some like theater elements thrown in. And you see that throughout the show, like the way certain lighting is done, the way certain tropes play out, the way certain musical numbers might be there. And that's always been part of the show. And there's math in the music. When they go off to the side, maybe they're imagining some things and they're playing music. There's math in that. Math in the music as a whole, right? The theme song, recurring themes, you name it. Because when it comes to music, see, here's the thing, right? It's very mathematical. From the notes that construct the music to how they're played and how long they're played and how fast they're played and at what volume. Math informing a motif that people are going to recognize. Math in injecting that into different elements of the show, and then like the music becomes more prevalent in the third season, because the idea is that they're making a musical, and so you see a lot more elements that you come to associate with musicals and theater, and they play out really well. And there's math across the board and everything that I just said, and so many other things. And I like it because, like I said in the beginning, there's murder, there's mystery, there's mayhem, and there's carefully constructed comedy gold. I like that because there's math and dissecting the mystery from our end on their end, and making us feel involved and included, and giving us enough to go off of while not giving out too much. And it's just really cool. And like I said, with the comedy, it's just like it's so carefully constructed. It feels so fluid and so natural, but it was written, recorded, And even if people were improvising, right, that had to be checked before it got to air at certain points, right? But it is just so well constructed, and I dig it, and it's a hilarious show, and I'm glad they're getting a fourth season. And I wanted to try to avoid story beats, because it's like I think this is better seen, but I always try to be safe with the spoilers in the beginning. But anyway, there's so much math in everything that I just said, but also so many other elements of the show. In either case, if you want to talk about the math in the show, please do. If you want to just talk about the show in general, please do. Try to be careful with spoilers, if you're going to be in the comment section. And if you're going to be in the comment section and you haven't seen the show, just be careful because some people might ignore that. But either way, Only Murders in the Building is an awesome show, and I encourage you to watch it if you haven't. And if you watched it and maybe you didn't like it at first, I encourage you to give it another shot. It's very well acted, very well written, and like I said, every like a person that has been on that show, it's just been like really well done. They're really good at what they do. And Selena Gomez, Steve Martin, and Martin Short, they're a good trio. Because like again, before, right, you had Steve Martin and Martin Short working together for decades, decades, and they are a dynamic duo. So here you have this terrific trio, and it's great. And like if you see in the show or certain interviews, you see like Selena Gomez just like light up when talking to them or about them, and it's a beautiful thing. And they just get around so sorry they get along so well, and that is awesome. In any case, I'll see you in the future. Professor Prime out. Don't know why I did that, but I'll see you in the future.